11-game main slate coming our way this evening. So let's break it down for the people by price range. Okay, so if you're paying up for a pitcher tonight, who do you like? Now, the most expensive pitcher on the slate is Corbin Burns at $10,300. The Cy Young contender has scored at least 20 DraftKings points in 6 of his last 7 games, averaged 23.3 fantasy points per game over that same stretch. So, Garion, is he the most expensive pitcher for a reason? Do you need him in your lineup?
I think you do. And that's the thing. This is one of those slates where it's easy to say, hey, use the most expensive guy. But occasionally you run into a matchup with the most expensive pitcher that sets up for a level of upside and ceiling that I just don't think is matched anywhere else. Now, look, I like Kevin Gausman against the Diamondbacks. He's done really well in that matchup the past couple of months. I think Alek Manoah has a really good matchup against the Los Angeles Angels. They're both above $9,000. But the Chicago Cubs have basically waved the white flag for the rest of the season, and they are putting out what can best be described as a AAA caliber lineup. And since the beginning of August, so essentially since the trade deadline, they have a 33% strikeout rate, which is a problem against most people, but is especially a problem against, well, he's not technically the league leader anymore. After yesterday's slate of action, Burns no longer has the innings to qualify. But for the point of this argument, the MLB league leader in strikeout rate, expected ERA, and FIP. Corbin Burns, you could make the case, is the best strikeout pitcher in baseball. And I think we're probably looking at a double-digit effort against the Cubs today. And again, he's expensive. He's going to be popular, but sometimes you have to eat the chalk because the chalk is going to score 37 DraftKings points.
Paul, are you eating the chalk with Corbin Burns?
I'm eating chalk, but not with Corbin Burns. When we talk starting pitching, win probability is primary key for me. So I like the Giants to beat the D-backs. Let's say that's an easy pick. So that means I'm looking at for a strong effort from Kevin Gausman, priced at $9,900. He's been limiting all opponents to a paltry .216 batting average over the last 54 innings he's pitched. That's quite a nice record, and he also has quite nice marks against the D-backs' current hitters overall in their careers, a batting average of .219 and 137 at-bat sample, only including 1 home run allowed. Let's not forget we're talking about the D-backs who are 2-8 in their last 10, have the worst record in baseball, and they're facing the Giants who are 8-2 and have the best record in baseball, so it's chalky as chalk gets. Too chalky for you, Jesse, then goes to a slightly less one-sided matchup in La La Land as the Jays go for the series split behind Alek Manoah, who's been historically impressive in his first 10 MLB starts with a 101 whip at a opposing batter average of 180 with 60 strikeouts in 52 innings pitched. That covers all the check marks that I'm looking for there. The depleted Angels lineup has scored at just a shade over 3 runs per game in their last 7 starts. Dylan Bundy brings an awful 6.14 ERA and a 136 whip into this one against the Jays offense. Take Manoah for 9,100. This is pretty chalky too.
Eric, these guys are eating a lot of chalk. What about you?
Yeah, can't go wrong with either Burns or Gausman. I think Manoah, though, is the guy that I like the most here at 9,100. He's facing an Angels team that in the second half ranks 28th in WRC+. The only teams hitting worse than them, if you adjust for league and park, are the Pirates and the Rangers, so not very good company. Obviously, the Angels team could be a lot better if they had guys like Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon hitting for them, but they don't. There's just not a whole lot left there at the moment. And Manoah was a highly rated prospect, and he's showing why right away that this is what they look like when frontline pitchers come up. Sometimes they're just good right away. 2.58 ERA is maybe a little better than he deserves, helped by a 2.20 BABIP, but striking out 28.2% of opposing batters it means you have upside for a huge point total any given night, striking out 30% of guys over his last 4 starts with an ERA of just 1.59 over that stretch. So he's a guy who was supposed to be good. He's been good, and he's been especially good lately. And with that matchup, I think especially with Burns and Gausman being so attractive at the top, I think Manoah might be the guy to go if you want not quite the same upside, but maybe a little bit less competition for your same guy.
All right, let's talk stud hitters, guys. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is 6,200. Paul, your Blue Jays, no one has hit right-handed pitching better than Vlad Jr., and he's facing a not great right-handed pitcher in Dylan Bundy. He's the second most expensive hitter on the slate, but do you need him in your lineup?
Sure, you can make an easy case for him, but I'm going to save you a little bit of money, and I'm going to stay away from the Jays because I don't want to sound like too much of a homer, Jesse. So I'll go to Max Muncy for $5,700. That interests me because he comes into this game in the middle of a potent Dodgers lineup against Cal Gibson and the Phillies, and is enjoying his own 12 for 42 run in his last 10 starts. Meanwhile, Gibson has struggled with control and has a bloated 137 whip in his last 10 outings. It's the hot batter versus cold pitcher thing, and you know where I land on that one. Sterling Marte for $5,700 is another compelling pick in this range, and he's batting .400 over his last 45 at-bats as part of a 1.015 OPS in his last 10 games. So I like him. And finally, I got to say something about Blue Jay. I was kidding. Speaking of hot batters, no one is hotter than George Springer, and with his 13 for 40 most recent streak. That includes 8 extra base knocks in the last 10 games. I talked about Bundy's recent struggles earlier. You get this match for Springer's price range of $5,600 tonight.
Eric, where are you looking? A guy over 5K, a hitter that you want to pay up for?
I think Muncy is also the top guy for me. Anytime you can get a power hitter in Citizens Bank Park, one of the most homer-friendly and hitter-friendly parks in the league, got to be interested. Kyle Gibson is just not scary at all. Was the big acquisition for the Phillies, but he's been a back-end starter throughout his career. He had a good run early in the season, but a 5.40 ERA over his last 5 starts with 15.7% strikeout rate and a 13.4% walk rate. This is a mediocre pitcher who's not even pitching that well lately, even if sometimes he's avoiding giving up runs. I don't expect that to remain the case against a lineup as good as the Dodgers. Muncy himself has had strikeout issues in the past, not severe ones over his previous 3 years with the Dodgers, striking out 25.8% of the time. This year, he's cut that all the way down to 18.7%. So suddenly he's a plus contact hitter, and he hasn't lost any power at all. His isolated power of 274 this year is right in line with his numbers from the previous 3 seasons as a Dodger. And that's led to career highs in expected batting average, expected slugging. It's the best contact he's ever made, and in a great park against a completely mediocre pitcher. I think this is as good a time as ever to play Muncy at either first base or second base.
Garion, you on the Muncy train?
I do like Muncy. I do like Vlad. I do like Springer. I do think, though, that you can get a little bit of differentiation by maybe stacking the Brewers, because people still don't think about the Brewers' offensive pieces or their key offensive pieces as guys you should spend over $5,000 for. There's something inside you that's like, no, Willy Adames is not a $5,400 player, but he kind of is. And Eduardo Escobar has been hitting really well. And I even think Christian Yelich, despite the fact that he's struggled immensely so far this season and hasn't really done anything to warrant his astronomical salary, no one's going to want to use him tonight because there's just other players that are playing better around him. But Jake Arrieta has been a dumpster fire his past 9 starts. He's got an ERA over 9 in that span of time. Opponents are slugging .679 off of him in that stretch, and he's giving up 3.9 home runs per 9. This is going all the way back to the beginning of June, so it's a pretty big sample size. I think Jake Arrieta is just cooked. I mean, on the DraftKings Sportsbook, the Brewers' team total is 6.5. I mean, they're going to score some runs in this game. It's just a matter of how much do you want to pay up for bats you're not normally paying that much for. And I think people are going to be a little scared to do it. So I will be stacking the Brewers.
All right. Eric, how about the best value bat for the slate? We just paid up. Now let's save the people some money.
Yeah, I think with so many really expensive and really good starting pitchers, you might need to go all the way down to the bottom for some of your guys in your hitters. And I think Hoy Park for the Pirates, who's eligible at both shortstop and outfield, is somebody I'd be definitely interested in. He costs the minimum and he's leading off. I could just end my segment there. That's kind of all you need to know. Even for a lineup as bad as the Pirates, even if the guy isn't anything special, if you can get a leadoff hitter for 2,000, that's somebody you should be looking very strongly at. And there's other reasons to look at Park too, even if he costs a bit more or wasn't a leadoff man. He's a 25-year-old rookie who didn't really have much in the way of pedigree heading into this year, kind of a fringe prospect type, looked like a probable utility man. But suddenly he had this statistical breakout at AAA, Scranton Wilkes-Barre in the Yankees system, hit .327 with 10 homers in 48 games and a walk rate over 20%. That good eye should remain. He had walked nearly 13% of the time heading into this year, but the power is something new. He'd never had more than 7 homers in a season. And again, he had 10 in 48 AAA games. Traded to the Pirates after just a single plate appearance in New York, but he's found himself in a situation where the Pirates have no reason not to see what he can do. And again, with that leadoff role and with showing something quite promising at the plate, I think he was, by some measures, one of the very best hitters in all of the minors. And he's getting the platoon advantage against Adam Wainwright, who is having a surprisingly good year, but he's not the kind of pitcher that should completely scare you off of using anyone against him, especially when the value is this good.
All right, Garion, a value bat. Where are you looking?
Go with Kevin Plewecki of the Red Sox. Always nice to pundit catcher, and he's only $2,900, and he has been mashing left-handed pitching so far this season. He's got a 151 WRC plus within the split. Alex Cora has noticed this because he started to hit 5th or 6th in the Red Sox lineup when they are facing a left-handed pitcher. And the lefty they get today is Josh Fleming, who, when he leaves Tropicana Field, it's like losing a Wi-Fi signal. Suddenly, all the weird Rays magic he has just completely disappears. He's got a 6.39 ERA on the road. His strikeout rate goes from 20% in Tampa Bay to 10% away from Tampa Bay. That is way too much contact to allow to not only a Red Sox team, but a Red Sox team hitting at Fenway Park. I just think the Red Sox in general, whether it's Hunter Renfroe, who's 3.6, Kike Hernandez is only $4,300. There are cheap enough options for this Red Sox team where you can create a nice little stack without spending a lot of money.
All right, Paul, a value bat for today's slate.
I'll give you two of them. One, $4,100 for Kyle Seager versus Spencer Howard. Howard's one of the lowest ranked pitchers on today's starters board. Seager's got 4 homers in his last 10 games, so the power bat's in order. That's the hot bat against the cold pitcher again. And then Didi Gregorius going down cheaper into the bargain bin for $2,900, a hidden gem on today's slate. He's hit a respectable 8 for 36 in his last 10 games, but I'm more interested in his 14 for 47 history against David Price. That's significant for me. Price has had issues with the long ball, getting up only 7 in 51 innings pitched, and has only gone more than 5 innings in 2 appearances this year. It's not the primetime version of David Price that he'll be facing today.
All right, let's change focus and take a gander at the DK Sportsbook. Garion, what's your favorite MLB bet tonight?
I'm going to go with the Reds money line. They're plus 105 right now. The Braves have also been really hot. They're 6-1 in their last 7 games. The Reds are 10-4 in their last 14 games, also 8-3 in their last 11 games on the road. So I understand why this is essentially a coin flip on the sports book, but you do get a little bit of juice taking the Reds as underdogs on the road. And really, this kind of just comes down to Wade Miley for me, as surprising as that is. Miley's been really good at suppressing hard contact so far this season. He's got a 2.75 ERA. His FIP is in the mid 3.5, so he's been pretty good. In his last 6 starts, that ERA is hovering at 2.04. So he comes in really hot, while the Braves have the 5th lowest WRC plus against left-handed pitchers so far this season. The Reds also have the best WRC plus in baseball at 132 the past 2 weeks. So it's a red-hot offense, a red-hot pitcher, and you're getting the Reds at plus money. So I think it's a pretty smart bet.
Paul, your favorite bet?
I go to the alternate run line whenever you guys ask me this question. There's some fun bets there. The Rays have played 4 straight games where the total runs have been no fewer than 12 and as high as 16. I expect a tighter game in this contest to end the series that they're having against their arch rivals. So I'm going to go to the under of 8.5 to pay off at plus 140. And we talked about Gausman and the Giants against the D-backs. I think he and his teammates are going to keep a lid on the punch list D-backs, and that'll go a long way to hitting the alternate run total of under 6.5 for a 155 payoff tonight.
Eric, where are you going?
Yeah, this Matt Harvey renaissance has been fun, but I'm going to fade it and go with the Tigers at minus 120 over the Orioles. Harvey in his last 4 starts has a 0.81 ERA, but all that's done is brought his season ERA down to 6.13, just to give an idea of how bad things were before that. That's hard to do at this stage of the season. And over those last 4 starts, nothing has actually really changed. It's a 185 BABIP seems to be the main reason why he's keeping runs off the board, striking out fewer than 15% of opposing batters. His expected FIP is up near 5 over that stretch. So I do not think he's a scary pitcher, even after this few decent starts there. And the Tigers might actually be good. Since the break, they're ranked 8th by WRC plus. definitely an exciting second half for them so far, somebody to watch heading into next year. Tarik Skubal on the other side is someone that I have a decent amount of faith in. I don't think he's an ace, but a 4.32 ERA actually exactly matches his expected FIP. He had a lot of strikeouts in the middle part of the season. That's gone down a bit lately, exactly 4 in each of his last 4 starts. But the main drawback for him for much of his career has been that he can't keep the ball on the ground at all, which would be a problem at Camden Yards, one of the more homer-friendly parks in the league. But he added a sinker midseason, and over his last 7 starts, he's actually a tick above league average in ground ball rate. So I think with that worry gone, and with him being overall pretty solid for most of the year and backed by a suddenly good Tigers lineup, I think minus 120 is too friendly to the Orioles there. I think Tigers should be favored by more than that.